All right, hello and welcome everyone for a Protea Builds refresh. Protea Prime is out. Sorry this video was not out sooner, but I have been very sick the last couple of days while farming her. But it is time to talk about Protea. Now it is worth noting, as you can maybe tell from my ephemera, this is a maximum investment Protea. So, not everything on this build is necessary, not even close, because Protea is an incredibly good Warframe. But this is a maximum investment Protea because she is like my favorite Warframe in the game. For that, the shards to start us off are 3 Tau ability strength shards, 1 Tau casting speed, and 1 Tau parkour velocity. Parkour, obviously, as I always mention, is only to taste, and you could replace this with whatever you want, or strength, or duration. You could use an equilibrium shard, which is definitely an option here. You could maybe drop a strength shard for an equilibrium if you feel like you want that effect. Few different things you can do here, but I'm 3 strength, 1 casting, 1 parkour, and that is what I prefer. For the build, this is not a much different investment than regular Protea because of the additional polarities that we get with Protea Prime, but the build looks like this. And this may be a little confusing at first to those that do not know how Protea works, but the question mark in this build is Archon Vitality. Archon Vitality will double the heat procs that get applied by your abilities, and that effect is only for her 2. However, it is incredibly strong on her 2 and allows her to much more get away with not needing a very high quality grouping ability to really DPS very well, and it just increases your damage exponentially, more than doubling it, honestly. So it's extremely good with specifically Blaze Artillery. Technically, if you're never going to use Blaze Artillery, which I don't know why that would be the case, you shouldn't run Archon Vitality. It is worth noting that the extra 100% health is very nice for whenever you have to deal with any kind of toxin or health draining or such and such type effects. So I like Archon Vitality quite a bit in this build, and I tend to use her 2 whenever enemies really need to die. Otherwise, we are a max range build. This is, of course, because of her 1 and her 2. Her 2 really loves range. You can see it has an 80-meter range in terms of its targeting distance. This makes Blaze Artillery able to lock down literal open world-sized zones whenever you're doing open world content, which I really appreciate. And in terms of our grenade fans, our shrapnel grenades are going to be huge at almost, well, not really almost, let's say 13 meters. And there will also, with this duration, last a good chunk of time, so you can toss a bunch of your blade nades out and kill everything. It also does affect the radius at which your shield satellites attach, so you can be a little more willy-nilly with where you're throwing those, and they will attach to you, your companions, your allies, so on and so forth, at a much easier to get range. You won't have to be specific with picking them up, which is also very convenient. So, max range, very helpful. It's also helpful for our Subsume, which is going to be Gloom. I do still think that Gloom is the play on Protea. Her passive allows her to very easily use a max strength Gloom. However, there are a lot of options with Protea. There are tons of different things you can go to. If you want to play more aggressively, Gloom is more of like a chill out option that make everything, slow everything down. You never have to worry about your health whenever your blade nades are out, like even if they're toxin or draining effects or whatnot or whatever. It has like a light grouping effect, so like the light grouping will help Blaze Artillery get more piercing shots and things like that. Gloom is just kind of like a general, all good things, good for all game modes type Subsume. And it works very well with Protea's passive. With that, other things that are very good Subsumes, Roar, extremely good. Another one that really benefits from her passive. You can have a very high strength Roar. Basically just every time it comes up, you can just specifically get the extra 100% strength on it, which is not really a hassle at all on this build. There's just endless options for what you can use for Protea. Just any of the good Subsumes, like you can go for Pillage if you want to, though it's worth noting a large reason I don't go for Pillage on this build is because she already has her shield satellites, which essentially do all the defensive things that Pillage does. Some people I've seen use Terrify on her even, which I don't think is great personally, but is an option. It's pretty wide open with what you want to subsume on Protea. Obviously, some people have the question, well, what about her 4 with the augment? Unfortunately, while her 4 with the augment is a little better, it's still just really annoying and inconsistent and just not very good. So we're always replacing her 4, and if you're not subsuming anything, this build is still great. Just don't ever press her 4. Like, just use her 1, 2, and 3. Her 1, 2, and 3 are more functionality than most Warframes get, as her 1 is 2 abilities, so she has 4 good abilities if you count her 1 as 2 different abilities. And that's more than a lot of Warframes have. So her 1 bum ability is essentially just a free slot for whatever you want to subsume, and she is excellent. If you do not care as much about, like, absolute maximum or near maximum range, you can drop Augur Reach. This is probably like a relatively easy general flex slot here. Although I will say, because we do know that Protea is getting an augment soon, Augur Message is also like, the 2 Augur mods are the ones where it's like, if there's something else you want in this build, like Equilibrium, those are the things to remove. You're going to either lose a little duration or lose a little range, and that's like really up to taste. The other thing that I want to mention is that I am using Umbral Intensify for the 44% ability strength. Precision Intensify builds, absolutely on the table and definitely an option depending on what your subsume is. For example, if you are on Roar, there's an argument that Roar getting more strength instead of your abilities equally getting strength is actually better. So, like, there's math to be done and considerations to be made. Some subsumes will specifically use Precision Intensify. In this case, Gloom does not need Precision Intensify. I will reach max Gloom just normally anyway. And then that strength is better spent on my 2 and my 1. And that's just how it works out. So this will swap in and out depending on what your choice of subsume is, and is definitely not really necessary for this. I will say, the reason why I am running 3 strength shards is just because it makes the kill, it just makes me kill things faster. Like, my 1 is usually enough by itself to kill all fodder enemies, even in Steel Path content, whenever I spam a bunch of them out. So that just locks down huge areas, and whenever you are below like 110% strength, it gets a little inconsistent with making sure all of the fodder is cleaned up. So those strength shards, while very good, are very optional, and it's mostly just because like that plus Molt Augmented gets me to like a very good amount of strength that's going to make it so that it's killing even usually heavy units if I give them a couple seconds without being attended to by my primary weapon. Other than that, not a lot to say here. Obviously, we have duration, energy max. With the enhanced energy that Protea Prime has, there is an argument that you could actually drop Primed Flow and use like maybe 1 Tau Blue Shard instead of a Strength Shard, and add something like Transient Fortitude if you don't care so much about the higher duration. There's a lot of things that you can do in this build. In terms of the aura, I'm using Corrosive Projection right now. There's a ton of things that also work here. Growing Power is very good. Corrosive Projection is just like very general because I'm not armor stripping. And yeah, like, we're using PSF, not necessary, but comfortable. And then we're using Energize to easily top off this energy. If you do not have Energize, you did not get it from the last event, worth noting that Steadfast, much easier to get and has a very similar effect on Protea. 20% chance for your next 3 abilities to be free is a very large energy savings. And if you're a little lucky, is actually usually better than Energize. Like, on average, they're pretty close. And if you are a little bit of a lucky person, like even just considering Grenade Fans, whenever you proc it, you immediately save 75 energy. And of course, that's like better on Blaze Artillery and Dispensary. You're saving considerably more energy if you're casting multiple of those, though it's unlikely you're going to cast multiple Dispensaries, I think. Dispensary, for those that don't know, is your entire energy economy. You throw this down, and it just shoots orbs everywhere, and you basically have infinite energy. These will proc Energize, and so on and so forth. This is also, because it does dispense health orbs, the consideration to run an Equilibrium effect. I personally don't feel like you need, definitely not a full Equilibrium mod in your build, but 1 shard of like the Equilibrium effect, the purple shard, is totally reasonable, as it is a considerable increase in your energy economy. And if you actually wanted to run a different Arcane than Arcane Energize, that's actually like another option you can do, where you can drop Energize and maybe put Equilibrium instead of Augur Message, and maybe you are someone who wants to run the other Molt mod for Molt Efficiency, because this is 36% whenever shields are active. Personally, I don't think that's very consistent, but it's something that I've seen people try and does work generally, especially at lower level content. But yeah, that's what's up with Protea. She's incredible. Real quick to go over, obviously I am using the deluxe skin. Like, this is just like what we're up to, if anyone's curious about any of the fashion stuff that's generally going on here. Her prime visuals, I'm not I don't really like her prime visually, but it's not like because of the whole thing. It's just these. They're a little hard to see in this coloring, which is on purpose. But these sleeve things, I think, are so godforsakenly ugly. I really like the rest of Protea. The rest of Protea Prime, I think, looks very good, but these arm things are, like, unforgivably horrible. They look bad in, like, every animation set, and they are, like, a weird, tacked-on, crappy part of the Protea Prime. So I'm just going to use the Deluxe for her visuals. I really wish you could toggle those off. But yeah, otherwise, you know, the Deluxe is still here and still looks great, so that's what we're up to. In terms of companions, she can run whatever. Really, she can run whatever. I'm going to be running Worm just because I'm re-leveling Worm to get a full build on him. And Worm, like, you know, has some status prevention and stuff like that, which is fine. Like, you can run Death Cube if you want even more energy orbs, Helios if you need to scan stuff, Catastrophe for double drops, it's Meta. You know, Paxon for even more shield gating stuff, Carrier for ammo. Like, you can really kind of run whatever you want. Diriga for status spreading. Like, it doesn't really matter. She doesn't need anything particularly from any companions. And with her having a very good energy economy, you can definitely sub out Zeneric. Zeneric, definitely nice in a pinch, or if you just like need to get dispensary up or something of that nature. But if you really do need an armor strip for a piece of content, you can easily swap this to Nairu and still have plenty of energy on Protea. And then you'll just have an on-demand armor strip in the few pieces of content where Protea will want that. But yeah, she is an incredibly versatile and powerful Warframe that really just gets to do pretty much whatever she wants. So go over her passive real quick for those that don't know. In the bottom right, you can see me like building up charges until it says 100% ability strength. That gives the ability you cast when it says 100% ability strength, 100% ability strength. So you can immediately cast Gloom for like its max effectiveness right off the rip. And that is incredibly effective. We have just our usual like Orokin battle group here. Steel Path level 225, which should not be a problem. With Gloom and the One, you can see that these enemies actually don't get to be enemies. They actually just get stunned permanently because Gloom slows down the stun from her One. So that's the thing you can do. You just kind of have infinite time to just like chill out and like just do what you want. And you know, that was only me throwing one. Whenever you start stacking how many you're usually going to be having, this is all slash procs constantly. So even the heavy units at this level, like, you know, these slash procs, they stack up pretty quickly. Worm blowing them away there. And they will kill even the heavier units. And this is like, you know, without me actively even really being here to kill these enemies. This is like just the usual kind of over time, the enemies will simply cease to be whenever Protea is doing her thing on a map with Gloom anyway. With Roar, obviously it's much faster, but it is like much less of a just creeping death and just like map lockdown. So really, it's just to taste which one of those you want to go for. Yeah, Worm actually kind of making this a little messy to show off, but still, yeah, like you understand like what is oh, whoops, not respawn though. I thought it did. Yeah, and then to show like her 2 off, throw some 2s out, and you can see like it's just blasting through a bunch of these enemies, like the 44, 48 heat procs, like just chunking down heavy units. And these are like, you know, not optimally your 2 is used in like hallways and such, and that's like where you want to be putting it down. Like anytime enemies are like in a row like this, the multiplier will just like, it goes up for each enemy it hits, so you get considerably more damage whenever you're using it in like more optimal positions and like higher enemy density and so on and so forth. But it's just all about positioning, and usually your positioning can be whatever you want. But yeah, that's what Protea's up to. Let's jump into Steel Path and do map lockdown to it. Alright, jumping into Tav. Yeah, Protea Prime. Oh, it's nice. It's nice that both of my 2 favorite Warframes are now primed. We love to have that. Yeah, both Mesa and Protea now fully fancied. Even though, you know, priming doesn't really, well, almost ever, change the actual functionality of a Warframe. But it's always nice to have the fancy version. Everybody wants the fancy version of all the things, right? One thing I did not note yet is that I do really suggest switching the like the hold functionality. Usually her 1 is tap to throw shields, and hold to throw the blade nades, and I really suggest the opposite of that, where just like tapping to throw your damage out, I think is definitely overall better, especially because you're going to throw considerably less shield grenades, because the shield grenades, like, they're like, you know, they're very persistent. I will say one of the nicest things about the shield grenades is they do protect your companions, so they'll almost never die. Of course, that was a more of a consideration before the companion rework, but still is a very good. And like, this environment right here is one that's like great for her. Like, you know, getting like these types of multipliers on this, like 40x damage on her too, is like extremely good. And just like, you know, yeah, like 40 procs with like the damage ramping up as it does on this is, you know, it's just great. You give it like a good sight line like this, and you're just, everyone down there just is gone. Like, just, you know, 40,000 damage on every enemy it hits. Like, just fantastic. And this is all while, like, you know, Protea loves to have an area in a map where she can just build a nest. Where it's like, oh yeah, this is the place where I set down my 3 and all the energy happens, and so on and so forth. There is, you know, I didn't mention it, but there is actually, like, also you can go for Nourish over her 4 if you don't want to use her 3. But it's kind of, you know, it just allows you to have, like, her 3 plus her 4 for, like, Hyper Greed. If you are going to go that way, I would actually probably suggest that you go Blind Rage somewhere in her build, because you're really not likely to need efficiency if you do go that direction. But I find that build is, like, you know, it's a bit more wonky. It's, like, a bit inconsistent. It doesn't like certain parts of the game where, like, you know, you need to cast your 3 pretty early, and you need to cast Nourish, and so on and so forth, while trying to do everything else that Protea is going to be doing. And she can get really spammy sometimes, like, even at, like, this, where, like, just 100% efficiency, sometimes you will run out of energy, like, occasionally. Usually, like, the only places that's going to happen is where, like, big energy drains are in place. So, like, in Deep Archimedia, if you're getting 10 energy a second drained from you by every enemy that's nearby you, that can be a pain. That's usually solved by, you know, just turning Gloom off or whatever, but it is a consideration. Yeah, these, I mean, you know, enemies can't really handle Protea. They don't like it. They don't like to have to try and deal with what Protea is up to. You can see that pile of health orbs there. That's one of the reasons to run an Equilibrium Shard, because, like, obviously that represents quite a bit of energy. And if you're on even a single Equilibrium Shard, that just gives you, like, true infinite energy. Like, not even a full Equilibrium actual mod is necessary. Like, that's, like, significant overkill. And, like, realistically, I mean, if you wanted to, like, you know, swap out Umbral Intensify for Blind Rage, maybe that's a reason to go Equilibrium, like, full Equilibrium, maybe. There's an argument for that. I don't think you're going to gain particularly a lot doing that way. Maybe that's, like, a build where instead of the Strength Shards, you go Duration Shards. Because you'd be getting about that much strength from going Blind Rage instead of Umbral Intensify. It's an option. But there's a lot of things to do on Protea, and, like, the big thing about it is that it's all good. Like, the real long and the short of it is that it's all good. Actually, probably need to go over here and, like, collect some loot. Yeah, no, there's a little bit of air support and a bunch of neural sensors and everything else over here. We'll say her kill rate, yeah, no, we're on 323. The more, like I said, this is, like, a more chill-out build version of this. More for, like, you know, doing, like, all kinds of missions, like mobile defenses and such like that, and, you know, just a general mission running, not so much just, like, infinite kill. I'm also not, like, you know, particularly giving it my all. I'm not really even shooting. More so just messing around. But that's like just what Protea is capable of, right? Is you just get to really make it whatever you want. Like, Eximus don't really, like, the moment like they don't have their overguard, they're slowed to a crawl. Like, you just get to play with the enemies, like they're, you know, like they don't get a say here. And, like, especially with, like, Worm on here, Worm being a choice here that's even more defensive, which enemies can't even get near you. And, like, it doesn't even inflict procs, like, almost ever. I can't be knocked down. A worm is preventing the rest of the procs, so I can't even take dangerous high-damage procs like Slash or Heat or anything else to even break my shields. And it's good. There's just, you know, there's no other way to put it other than, hey, it's pretty good. Like, if you want to not have to worry about really anything, recharge the miter here. This is going to get it done. Even if you're, like, fighting an enemy that is, like, crowd control immune and can just, like, do whatever they want, just spamming your shield satellites makes you, like, effectively invulnerable. Because each one represents, like, a 3-second shield gate whenever your shields break. So, like, if I'm just doing this and, like, letting these enemies hit me, like, there's not, like, they can't really do anything about this. Like, I'm just going to get more shield satellites. Like, a shield satellite attaches to me, like, the moment my shield breaks. So, like, they can't, it's not, we're not worried about it. Like, it's some of, like, the best tanking you can actually get on a Warframe. Without, like, you know, doing, like, energy spam, like, shield gating. Like, she just has inherent refreshing shield gates. So, like, what are the enemies gonna do about it? The answer is nothing. Like, the only thing that's going to kill you as Protea is pretty much ever going to be, it's going to be running out of energy is going to be the thing that gets you if it's going to be anything. Or in this case, running out of air, because I'm just, like, hanging out explaining. I will say running a armor strip on her is very funny. So that is a consideration. Because it makes her blade nades kill, like, basically instantly anything that walks into their AoE. Yeah, we're, like, at 500 kills. If you're going for kill rate, the Roar build is actually the one that you want to be on. Because it doesn't... Like, this build trades more on, like, oh, yeah, there's nothing that can really deal with this. As opposed to trying to compete with, like, a Saren, right? Like, this is more of, like, a support ish version of Protea, where it's like, oh, yeah, there's a Saren in the party. There's a Mesa taking care of, like, this, that, and the other thing. I'm providing infinite energy for the squad. Like, no one's going to run out in Deep Archimedia if my 3 is down or something like that, right? And of course, you can supplement, like, all of the enemies literally being incapable of fighting you with, you know, simply shooting them with any kind of a halfway decent gun. Will usually get you quite far if you decide to do that. Throw our 3 down here. Just toss some 2s up for laughs, really. Her 2 really does a fantastic damage. Extremely good. Like, I kind of half mentioned it earlier. Extremely good for bounties. Or we'll use it on Torment here. I guess also the Blade Nades on her. Torment's a little resilient to this because she can actually, like, purge the statuses. Oh, she's also being slowed. You can see, like, the damage you get out of her, too. Even though Torment is able to, like, just go invincible and everything like that. But yeah. No, I mean, it's not, like, the fastest thing in the world to deal with an Acolyte, but it's, like, hilarious that it works. Because that's not even... Like, it's, like, a completely non-optimal target. And a big reason of why it's so good is just, like, you know, it shot, like, once into a group of, like, 5 enemies, so it got, like, a decent starting multiplier. And then just went crazy. I'm really hoping that the augment for her, too, is something along the lines of, like, if you hit at least 3 enemies with a shot, increase the duration of her 2 by, like, 1 second or something. And then maybe some other, like, small auxiliary bonus. That's personally what I would want. Because that would be, like, very interesting, because, like, her 2 would have to be set up in, like, a very particular way. It would only be good in Steel Path, of course, because all the other enemies would die. That might actually bring back, like, it being better to do grouping on her, because you might be able to, like, group and then have her 2 build up a good amount of duration and then kill everything that it wasn't able to hit before. Also, you can see huge multipliers here. I don't think we're going to be able to get any of, like, the funny multipliers. Because, for anyone who doesn't know, there's actually a very funny visual bug. It doesn't actually bug anything, it's just the way that it works. Her 2 was never, like, designed to go above 2 digits. So if you do have it hit over 99 enemies, the 1 actually goes above it. Also, just gonna run out of here. Yeah, kill rate, I mean, we're on like 700, but I don't know. I think that how good this is understood, and what this is like not. This is not a kill rate version of this build, and you know, a lot of Warframes need to be a little more active to see even like the 700 kill rate. But yeah, that's Protea Prime. She's incredibly good, absolutely fantastic. And I will be continuing to use Protea a lot for this foreseeable future. Hopefully not enough of you play her to get her nerfed. That would be very sad. But yeah, that's what's up with Protea. Thanks all for watching. Tier list I'm still working on. There's a Ureli video coming, but that should be soon. Obviously, a million delays, including me being sick recently. But that should be out probably next week or so. But yeah, that's gonna do it, and I will see you tomorrow. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. And also, of course, thanks as usual to the patrons for supporting the channel, especially the $10 patrons: Alex Parnham, Andrew, Arbiter Daydream, Benuven, Plotomatic, Brutus Salazar, Canalathra, Dylan Dworsky, Ethrain, Hafan, James Harsthorne, JC4Science, John Lobdell, Joshua Adams, Luzanth, Malachx Williams, Mikokel, Minty Ginja, Michta, Nerve, Moxidate, Ruby, Sanyu, Skur, Sharp247, Tamarilic Wastelander, The Coupon of Death, Tomeworm, Victor Palmer, Waifu Wars, Waldad, and Seraphir. And of course, thank you to all of the $5 patrons as well. Your support is extremely appreciated. But yeah, we're about to get the Dante update. Should be an excellent time. Expect tons of videos to be coming about all the changes and new stuff that we're getting in that update, and should be excellent. And then the tier list will hopefully shortly follow.